This is the Dallas Morning News.
Well, hello, and welcome to a new Friday episode of SportsDay Rangers. I'm John Blake.
And I'm Evan Grant.
This is our new release date, Fridays, and you also see we have a new way that you're seeing us via the cameras. It's my side, my best side is my right side, so we'll see how this works out, Evan.
My best side is my backside. We'll see how this goes.
And we have a big guest today for our first Friday episode.
We do. We have a big guest in terms of both responsibility and stature. Chris Young, the Rangers president of baseball operations, is going to join us.
So the season's starting to wind down. The Rangers are coming off a 5-1 homestand, ready to embark starting on Friday, today, as you hear us, on a 6-game road trip to West Sacramento against the A's, and then on to Arizona against the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, and, they continue to stay just on the fringes of the playoff race. They're 4.5 games back of Seattle right now for the last wild card spot. Technically, really 5 games back because they've lost the tiebreaker to them. They've also lost the tiebreaker to Kansas City, which is ahead of them, and the tiebreaker to the Yankees, who are also ahead of them. But they're 6 games back of Houston with 6 games against the Astros still to play in the American League West.
So as Evan mentioned, we're going to talk to Rangers president of baseball operations, Chris Young, about the rest of this season, maybe what's to come ahead, and then we'll go from there. And then on the archives in Arlington, we're going to talk about 2 pitchers in club history who hold club records for wins in a season, with pitching being a big factor this season.
SportsDay Rangers is, this is your reminder that SportsDay Rangers is our weekly spinoff of the Dallas Morning News SportsDay Insider podcast. You can find it on Fridays in the SportsDay Insider feed, wherever you consume podcasts. SportsDay Insider podcast has moved to Wednesday drop. So both of them are available in your feeds at all times.
So we hope you'll be able to listen to both with these new schedules. We're looking forward to it. And if you want to interact with the show, you can always follow us on X. I'm at Ranger Blake, and he is at Evan_P_Grant. Or you can reach out to the Dallas Morning News on any of the paper's social media channels.
Bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Here comes Jimmy Dale from Baker Brothers Plumbing, AC, and Electrical.
Thanks, Chuck. When your home pitches curveballs, Baker Brothers knocks it out of the park.
Home run, Baker Brothers. Incredible.
As the official home service partner of your Texas Rangers, we're offering $300 off a tank or tankless water heater.
Another winning call. Visit callbakernow.com or dial 214-342-1171 today.
Baker Brothers.
Great service.
So we look ahead here. Rangers again. It seems like some of this is a broken record, coming off a good homestand and then embarking on the road where the club is 26-40. So that's probably the big headline here today, Evan. Again, the Rangers are 42-27 at home,
and 26-40 on the road, the 4th worst record in Major League Baseball on the road, and it's something they've got to do better. I mean, there's just no other explanation. There is no explanation for why their home and road numbers are so dramatically different. You would think that a team that was built to slug and that hasn't really slugged in a pitcher-friendly park would slug more on the road, but it just hasn't added up to victories. So we'll see what happens here in Sacramento and in Arizona. They've got 2 losing clubs ahead of them.
Although the A's are playing pretty well the last 6 weeks.
They have played pretty well the last 6 weeks. But maybe just the idea that they're finally had their backs really up against the wall has spurred these Rangers into a different gear. All I know is, again, this homestand looked different. There was offense. They jumped on top of teams, and they continued to add. They hit home runs. They hit 4 home runs on Wednesday night. They hit 3 home runs on Tuesday night. They hit 3 home runs, I think, in the second game of the homestand.
21 homers in the 6 games.
And this was – so they had
14 homers in the 6 games.
They had 3 3-homer games on this homestand, and I think they've had 5 3-homer games at home all year. So something was different. And when it comes on the heels of all this tough injury news in which you've lost Marcus Semien basically for the year, you've lost Evan Carter probably for the year, and perhaps most significantly of all, you've lost a Cy Young candidate in Nathan Eovaldi for the rest of the year.
Well, looking at that, again, guys stepped up on this homestand. Wyatt Langford is getting on base at the top of the order. Adolis Garcia, since coming off the IL, seems to be energized right now and having that offensive ability that he has when he's going well. And even Jock Peterson has been able to have better at-bats, and he's got a lot of power. The question is it going to be enough with the injuries that you mentioned?
Well, you see what having some power and production in the middle of the lineup does. And you know, it's funny. On Friday, the first day of the homestand, I was talking to Bruce Bochy. It was right after he had taken the day's absence and attended to a family matter, and he had been away from the team, and the Rangers had that awful outcome in Kansas City. And we were talking, and he still wasn't giving up hope on the season. He said, you know what would really help? We're going to get Adolis back tomorrow, meaning on Saturday. He said, a hot Adolis just for a couple of weeks can really get us on a run. Well, they've had a hot Adolis for 5 games now. And then you factor in that Jock Peterson has a 900 OPS in August. And so now you've got behind Corey Seager, you've got both Garcia and Peterson, and sometimes it's flopped in that depending on whether the pitcher's a righty or a lefty. But I think what it does, you've got Wyatt Langford getting on base. Then you've got Seager, who all year pitchers have just basically said, well, we'll just pitch around Corey Seager and take our chances with everybody else.
Right.
Now you can't do that because you've got Garcia and Peterson both hitting the ball pretty well, and you've often got somebody on base with Wyatt Langford ahead of Seager. And that makes all the difference in the world. I think last night, at the point that they had 11 runs, I think all 11 runs had been scored by their 2, 3, 4, and 5 hitters. So when all of that's functioning, yeah, it looks like a formidable offense. Can it function for another 27 games? All you can say about this club now is, well, we'll see. We'll see, because you really have no idea what team you're getting from day to day.
And it was kind of impressive to me on Tuesday and Wednesday. I mean, Kikuchi is a good pitcher. He did not have good stuff. But there have been so many times this year where we've seen the Rangers still chase and not be patient at the plate. But Tuesday and Wednesday, they were patient. They didn't chase. They looked for the good pitch, and they were able to drive it with some authority. Yeah,
I mean, like I say, I asked Chris Young yesterday or Wednesday at the ballpark. I said, so you're slugging now all of a sudden. Do you have any idea why all of a sudden in this ballpark where you haven't slugged all year, all of a sudden now you're able to drive the balls out? And he kind of just shrugged those big shoulders, and it's just there's not a logical explanation for any of this, unless the simple thing is that you've gotten a couple of guys who were cold all year hot, and it's changed the complete look of how you pitch the Rangers.
Well, let's look at the pitching a little bit. Obviously, losing Eovaldi.
Before we go into the pitching, there's one thing I want to say that, you know, and this was my game story off of Wednesday night's game. It's easy to laugh and smile when you have a 20-3 win, when you score that many runs, and you know the opponent is replacing position players with other position players to pitch. But
in the seventh inning,
this team needed a laugh. You know, of all the things that Kevin Pillar said back in May, shortly after he was released, I think the one thing that stuck with me is that they didn't look like they were having fun. And I think we've talked about this. There's this narrative that they don't look like they're having fun, but if they win, it looks like it's all business, right? I do think there is something to be said for being able to laugh. And, you know, you saw last night at the end of the game, you saw Semien and Eovaldi both in high spirits on the bench talking to guys. But Bruce Bochy gave one of his most expansive answers of the year after the game, just about the value of guys laughing and having a good time. And I thought there was a message in there that, hey, if this team can play loose and play with a little bit of a vibe over this last month, anything is possible.
And it does help, too, as you mentioned. You're not playing those tight, nail-biter games every night where your offense is struggling. And, boy, if we give up one more run here, it's going to change the game. We can't afford to give up a run because we're not sure if we're going to score. So I agree with you 100%. It's having fun is part of this, and to be able to take a little of that pressure off, especially when you're coming into the latter part of the season and you're still in contention. It's a big lift off their shoulders.
Yeah, and despite all those injuries, they had such a good homestand, which I think only adds to that. Hey guys, we can do this. We have the ability to do this. Will it happen? I don't know. The odds are stacked against them very high, but all you can ask is, they had to go pretty much 5-1 on this homestand, and they did.
So again, speaking of Nate Eovaldi, takes a huge piece out of your rotation. They'd won his last 9 or 10 starts when he was on the mound. How did Jacob Latz pitch last night in what was essentially a bullpen game, although he got into the 5th inning? Is that what you kind of see, kind of mixing and matching that spot? And again, they'll get 3 more pitchers. I mean, they'll probably get another pitcher, right? They'll get a 14th pitcher coming up this weekend. But how is that going to play out? And how does Bruce Bochy try to go to 4 at some point when he can with an off day with this staff?
There are times when he may go to 4. I also think that, listen, Andrew Heaney is on waivers right now. The Rangers have always thought highly of Andrew Heaney. I think he would get through the whole process Friday about the time this podcast is being dropped. And I think there would be, because both Chris Young and Bruce Bochy mentioned, we will look externally too. And so
is Rocker a possibility at this point? I know he's scuffled a little.
So Rocker is currently in Arizona.
Right.
His arm slot has dropped a little bit in where he's delivering the ball, and the Rangers feel like that makes his pitches play a little bit too similarly, and he gets into that thing where the curve and the slider, whatever he wants to call it, they just all look the same.
Right.
So he's in Arizona, and they're trying to work on some mechanical things. I think the Rangers would like to get Kumar back before the end of the season, but I think they want to see him complete this
It's tough to
project.
bring a guy into that situation, too, if you're
100%.
in contention.
And I think, it also makes a difference if the last 2 weeks of the year the Rangers aren't competing, then maybe you bring Rocker back up and just get him some innings, and maybe at that point in time you're looking to shut Jacob deGrom down. Anything can change with one bad week here or one great week.
Like I've always said, if you just want to be in contention, and I think there's still that hope, like you mentioned at the start, not having the tiebreaker with all these teams the way they do it now, with no games being played to end ties, it's going to make it hard, but we'll see.
As sick as I am, the thing I started thinking about last night, John, is let's say the Rangers beat the Astros 5 out of 6.
Right.
Okay. 3 here and 3 there. Well, let's say they make up they completely, because they've got so many head-to-head games with the Astros, they completely eradicate that margin. And you end up with the 3 teams tied for the division title and for a wild card. Could the Rangers push themselves into the division title and yet push themselves out of the playoffs at the same time through tiebreakers? I don't know.
All that stuff is feasible, and MLB does a nice job starting the 1st of September. You'll get that every day, and then you can start. And they kind of do it for you now. In the old days, we had to sit there and kind of figure it out. But that stuff makes the game fun. We all wish the Rangers we could prepare for postseason, but we're where we are, and we'll see what happens.
When you've got something like that to think about in September, instead of just saying, well, let's run some young kids out there and hope for the best. That's what makes baseball important, or makes September important, obviously. And again, the fact that this team played a good homestand, if they can go on the road and continue this for another week, they've got a chance in September to make some noise.
Our guest this week, we were fortunate enough to talk to Rangers President of Baseball Operations, Chris Young. I will qualify this by saying we did tape this before the Nathan Eovaldi injury was announced earlier this week, but CY certainly had some great things to say about Eovaldi's season. So we worked through the technical difficulties and some barking dogs to bring you Chris Young. We're very pleased on this week's episode of Sports Day Rangers to welcome Chris Young, President of Baseball Operations for the Rangers, now in his third full season of running the baseball operations. And as we tape this, coming off a weekend sweep of the Cleveland Guardians. CY, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, John, Evan, happy to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
So the weekend went pretty well. Again, as we're taping this, Rangers are now 40-26 at home, 26-40 on the road. But after coming off two shutouts of the Guardians, great starting pitching, you got the long ball this weekend. Where do you see this club at the moment?
Well, John, it's a great question, and I think really it's one of the perplexing aspects of this season, specific to this club, because there are moments where we play so well and you see what the club is capable of against really good teams. And I put Cleveland in that category, and we've had series against the Yankees and Houston and Detroit. I thought we played the Dodgers really well early in the season. And, but then we have moments where we just don't play well against some teams that we feel like we should beat. And so I just, in my heart, do not believe that we've played our best baseball yet. My hope is that is still to come. And if it is, given where we are right now, there's still the possibility that we can make a push and make the playoffs. And that's what I'm expecting. That's what I'm hoping for. But the reality is we have to go do that. But to answer your question, this team is, right now we're a 500 team because we haven't been able to put together the consistency that good teams do.
See why as John brought up, the home and road splits are just so dramatically different. They're mirror images of one another. I know you and I have talked at some occasions about how the ballpark has played the last 2 years. Do you have any theories on why this team seems to have different personalities at home versus the road?
Yeah, Evan, I really don't. It's a really hard thing, and normally you would think over the course of a year or two it would start to even out, and your record would kind of balance out both home and road based on the type of team you are. My expectation is that we're the team at home, that we're the team that is capable of winning at the rate that we have at home, and when we haven't been able to accomplish that on the road, certainly we look for a number of reasons why that's occurring. I can't say specifically what those are yet. We play very well at home. Guys are comfortable at home, whether it's with their families, the environment. There's something about being home that brings out the best in us, and we've got to figure out how to win on the road.
To me, that lends to the unpredictability of this team, right? You just don't know what personality you're getting from day to day or from location to location. How I hate how questions, but it just comes down to this. I mean, that's got to be frustrating in planning and execution from you to Boch, to the coaches.
Yeah, and Evan, obviously it's our job to believe in the team and to believe in the talent and the roster that we put together. We chose these players for a reason, and we believe that this group is capable of being a playoff caliber team and a team that we hope could win a championship. And so the lack of consistency is challenging because it forces us to try to find answers as to why and to try to shuffle the deck a little bit, and whether it's changed the lineup or the roster construction or moves even beyond that we've done this year. We're constantly searching for the right ingredients, so to speak, the right recipe to bring this group together in a way that allows for consistency. And we're not talking about a huge change. I mean, we're at 500. If we have won 5 more games than we've lost at this point, we'd be 10 over. And so it's little things and it's marginal wins, but just we can't seem to string together the consistency that the better teams have, and that's the one thing that's limited us. And to your previous question, the home and road split, if we played even close to 500 on the road, this is a really, really good team. It's hard to explain why we haven't won at the level on the road that we have at home. And now it's hard to win on the road, I understand, but our record should not be as poor as it is on the road, especially when you see how good we can be at home. So I say this as like really a vote of confidence to the team that, are there just some small things that can click here for the last portion of the season that will allow us to play our best baseball ahead. And that's really what I'm hopeful will happen. But your question's very fair. That the ups and downs of the season, it makes you a little bit, it scars you a little bit.
Just a little bit about the offense. You mentioned and you guys have spent all season trying to construct that 1 through 9 lineup, and having Wyatt Langford at the top. It looks like had some success in the last few days. They were taking pitches over the weekend. You were getting that slug that you were looking for. But how hard is it to try to, day after day, try to construct that lineup 1 through 9 to be productive?
Yeah, John, it's a great question. And really, one of the challenges of this season, while we felt like we built a very deep roster 1 through 13 on the position player side, we just really haven't been healthy throughout the season. There haven't been many games where we've had our true A lineup, so to speak, and we're not going to now with Evan Carter's injury and Marcus Simeon's injury. We're just not going to have the group that we thought for any significant time, the rest of the season. So, but that's not unique to us. There are other teams that have injuries that still win, and that's up to us. That's part of building a deep roster and a deep lineup, is that we have really good players to step in and perform. Now, this year, I think the big challenge has been that we just have had underperformance from a number of guys offensively. I think a number of guys got off to slow starts and then started pressing, and it kind of compounded the problem a little bit. And so, to the previous question, when that happens, we're constantly shuffling the deck, looking for the right lineup, whether it's Simeon in the leadoff spot or Evan Carter, Josh Smith, Wyatt Langford, Sam Haggerty. We've gone through a number of options. Do we back Corey in the 2 spot, the 3 spot? How do we put together the hottest group of guys and kind of stack the lineup to where, at certain portions of the game, these 4 or 5 guys who are hot, or at least swinging it better, are going to come up in order and give us the chance to actually score runs. And that's been the challenge this year, is just the lack of consistency. And to, I feel for Boch a lot with this, because, there'll be days where he does do that, and he puts the lineup in a way, constructs the lineup in a way where he feels like, all right, we've got 3 hot guys in a row, and then, 1 or 2 of them will go cold. And so, I feel like there are a lot of games where we'll have, 10, 11 hits, and those hits will come maybe every 3rd guy, every other inning, so to speak. And so it's not like it's consistent, base hit, double or something like that, where we can score 1 or 2 runs. It's all right, we get a base hit here, and then we end the inning, and then the next inning we, get a couple guys on and, can't get that big hit. It's just been a year where things haven't aligned perfectly. But that said, we're still in a spot where if they do align, we've got a chance to do something special.
So, Stu, with that in mind, right, you've got September, and it appears you're going to play some meaningful games in September, and that's every GM's hope. But you've also got to figure out, like, okay, if this does not go the way you want it to go, what reshuffling do you want to do? What do you want to approach? How do you kind of weigh those two things in your seat, with both looking at what's right in front of you, but also needing to really get a jump on the off season? Because if you do need to make some changes, I think they're going to be fairly significant.
At this point in the season, given where we are in the standings and still in a playoff race, the focus is 2025. Part of that is that we now have some injuries. It's going to force some of the younger guys, some of the guys that may be 2026 options for us to play. And beyond that, we really don't have access to upgrading the roster or changing the roster at this point. So the guys we have are who we are, we're going to have to win with this group. And so we're going to need to get the best out of everybody we have. And we're going to find out some of the answers to 2026 in this playoff race in 2025, which I actually think is a great thing for our young guys. I was talking to, our former associate manager, Will Venable, a few days ago, and we were just, talking about reflecting on where they are at this point in the season. And they've got a young roster in Chicago, and they're trying to finish strong. And I went back to 21 and 22 for us. And one of the messages that I gave our group was that, we can make a difference in the playoff race, that there's something to play for, and we're going to play playoff caliber teams. And then in the future, we hope to be on the other end of this, where you've got some teams that are out of it trying to ruin our season. Well, we're right in it. And for our young guys, this is a great opportunity for them to understand what it means to be playing competitive baseball this time of year, to have a chance to compete for a championship. And I think that will serve them well. And for us, it's going to give us the opportunity to find out about, some of the guys moving into the offseason. But the expectation is that the roster we have, these guys are going to step up and do the job and help us win. And we'll accomplish two things at once.
I thought it in the terms of the young players, right? We talked about Cody Freeman played a little bit this weekend, had the big home run. We've seen Ezekiel Duran get a little bit more runway and show some good hitting skills. And this thought kind of crossed my mind. With this team, everything is perception in baseball. Performance tells you what is reality, but it certainly looked like those young players gave you a little bit of a boost of energy and urgency. And from my perspective and where I sit, the optics have looked a little bit this year like this team just thought it was going to happen, that it was going to perform. How do you feel about what you've seen in terms of energy and quote unquote urgency?
Yeah, and I want to be careful here, because I think sometimes we confuse the lack of urgency or the lack of energy when things aren't going well with the results. And that's not the case. This is a very focused group. It's a very serious group. It's a group that is really committed to being very good, individually and collectively. And these guys, they care. The care factor is super high. And especially when you're not hitting. I read a quote by Bob Melvin recently. He was describing the Giants' struggles in the second half of the season, and it feels like they play without energy and maybe, I don't think he used urgency, but he said similar in that it's when you're not scoring, that's the way it looks, but it doesn't mean the effort's not there. And I would categorize our struggles in kind of our style of play similarly, in terms of these guys are caring and they're giving the effort. But when they are struggling offensively, it just appears at times that there's a lack of energy. Now, to the contrary, when you have young guys come up and perform and get on base and get hits, there is a youthful excitement that comes with that. And, I got to say, like, even when Cody Freeman hit his first big league home run, it just brought such a smile to my face seeing a player who's worked his whole life for this opportunity to get his first major league home run, and similar with Alejandro Osuna earlier in the season. So there's a natural infusion of energy and youth and just fun that's injected in the team when you have young guys who come up and perform. But that's not to knock, in my opinion, where these guys are, what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. They care and they try. It hasn't been there. But I do think, young guys who perform, they do inject life into a team. There's no doubt about it.
What does Nathan Eovaldi inject into this team on a every not just every 5 days, but throughout the week? I mean, I think he's had an impact on the steps that Jack Leiter has made. I think he does set a tone. How valuable beyond the contract has Nathan been for you guys?
Heaven, you can't quantify it. There's just no value that we could place on what Nate has done as a Texas Ranger, from helping us win our first World Series championship to, the seasons that he's had last year, this year. And we have him for 2 more years, and just what he means in the clubhouse, the impact he has on his teammates, young pitchers. And, I can speak to this firsthand, not specific to Nate, but as a young player, when you're around great veteran players, it accelerates your learning curve. And sometimes your best coaches are your teammates. And for me, I had the opportunity to be around early in my career, guys like Kenny Rogers and Greg Maddux and Trevor Hoffman and some really, really great players that I was able to learn from. And really, I felt like I got a lifetime worth of education sitting in the dugout next to Greg Maddux for the year and a half that we were teammates. And my hope for Jack and some of our younger players is that they're getting a similar experience and education, that we're accelerating their development because they get to sit by and learn from Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi and being surrounded by good veteran players. And, I just can't express the excellence that Nate represents in terms of not just the player, but the person and the leadership and all the intangibles that he brings. It's just, he's such a unique player, such a winner. And every executive that I talk to who's either been around him or knows his reputation, they always say the same thing. They just say, this guy is the best. And that's the only way I can describe him as is the best.
Just building a little bit on the pitching. And I know the answer to this. Because you were a starting pitcher, but being around the Rangers, and this is a fan, the starting pitching this year has been historically, it can't be any better. And this goes from Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi. Patrick Corbin has been a workhorse for your club. You've got Merrill Kelly. Jack Leiter has, as a young pitcher who didn't have a lot of innings in the minor leagues, he is making great progress. But when you have a group like that, does that add to the frustration for the team? I know it does to the fans, but for you guys that, hey, we have this is the pitching we are running out there every night keeps us in the game. How do you kind of balance that? Because you were a starting pitcher and you know how that works.
Well, John, I think first I want to go back just to probably 5 years ago when I first came in, and one of my goals for this organization was that we would be known at some point for our pitching. Now, I did not expect it to be at this level. We have made a very concerted effort and commitment internally to pitching development, drafting, developing, and also free agent signing the right type of pitchers. I think we've done a great job of building out our pitching infrastructure internally in our pitching department. But to say I would expect us to perform at this level, and part of that is based on the ballpark. 2 years ago, the ballpark was a little bit different in terms of the way it played as compared to the way it's playing now. And I'm not saying that's what's causing our pitching excellence. What I'm saying is that it's a little bit of a confluence of events that I think is contributing, but ultimately we have really, really good pitching. We have really good pitching coaches, and we have a pitching department that's helped us make very good decisions in helping these guys realize their potential. In terms of the frustration this year when we have pitched so well, and is it a wasted opportunity because our offense has been a little bit of an Achilles heel? I'd say there have been some moments where it's been frustrating, and I think the biggest ones for me have been in times where actually we lose because the pitching doesn't perform, and mainly because the stress that they've been under, where we've had, we play 7, 8, 9 one-run games in a row, and our leverage arms get stressed and tired, and we're asking too much of them and having to go to them every night. The 10-0 win against Cleveland on Saturday was, I couldn't remember the last time we won a game like that. And so the feeling of just relief that we had, that we knew we could finish this game and probably run out, Luis Curvelo, a rookie, to at least get an inning or maybe two to finish the game. We just haven't had the luxury of that, even in the spots where we've been going well. And so the offense has put a little pressure on the pitching, but it's not too late for the offense to take some of that pressure off the pitching. And I do believe, and we saw that this weekend, the offense put up some runs, the pitching did what they did, and all of a sudden we won multiple games by not having to use our leverage arms. And that's a great feeling to have. And so my hope is that as we get into these last, 30 plus games, that we can kind of continue that and take some of the stress off the pitching. Ultimately, this is a team game, and the seasons that go really, really well, when the pitching struggles, the offense picks them up, and when the offense struggles, the pitching picks them up. And we just haven't had that many moments this year where we've been able to pick each other up on one side or the other. But I'll tell you what, it has been fun. I grew up a Ranger fan. I know the history of pitching in this organization, and it has been really, really fun to watch our staff this year and to see how well they pitched. And I'm expecting a strong finish from these guys.
Last question for me, CY. And my good friend Kevin Sherrington wrote a column on Monday morning talking about Bruce Bochy and his situation. And I know as we go into September, the standings are what matter. That is what matters. Boch is in the last year of his contract. What have you seen? He's called this the most challenging year he's ever had in terms of a team. What have you seen from him in terms of how he's handled this?
Yeah, Evan, Boch has been wonderful. I hate to hear him say that it's been the most challenging year. I think, he's been in baseball for a long time. This is my 25th season professionally in baseball, and I'd say I'd put it right at the top for me as well. But to hear Boch say that, it takes on a different level. The reality is that for whatever reason, we haven't been able to get it done in terms of being where we want to be, leading the division or a certainty for the playoffs. That said, there's still this opportunity ahead of us. And if we can play really good baseball for 30 days, we could be in a spot to win another world championship. And so in spite of how we feel or what the challenges may have been to this point, it really doesn't matter. And I'd say Boch has a great mentality with that. He said it in our staff meeting before the Cleveland series, and he kind of took the words out of my mouth. It's about what we've got moving forward, and that's going to define this season. And so we've got a chance to erase all the challenges that we've had. And it's one of the things about the game of baseball, for me, it's what makes our game so great, is that it's, one, unpredictable, and two, sometimes when you face the biggest challenges, you are rewarded with the greatest rewards. And I'm hopeful that's what we have coming. I'm hopeful that we have this opportunity now to finish strong and that this thing is going to come together, and we've got great things to look forward to. I'm an optimist by nature. I want to believe. I'm a fighter. I love the underdog mentality, and we're kind of right where I normally like to be. And so we've got this opportunity, and Boch is prepared. He's ready for it, and he's going to find a way to get the best out of these guys. And like I said, I hope that it comes together here, because if it does, I think this team is talented enough to compete for another championship.
Well, that's all you want to ask. You want to be in September and have a chance to win and be in contention. I think there are a lot of years the Rangers haven't had that, so we're looking forward to September and seeing how it turns out. See why we really appreciate the time today, and we'll look again. Thanks a lot, and you'll have to deal with Evan here a lot more than with me, but I've enjoyed the time. Thanks.
John, Evan, I appreciate you guys having me. This was great to be with you, and anytime you want to come on and have me talk Ranger baseball, I'm happy to do it, but thanks for the time today.
Well, Evan, that was a really interesting conversation with CY, and again, he's kind of in that mode of and as every head of baseball operations, you're so caught up in the moment here trying to win, but you also got to look ahead.
And listen, I think it's also one thing I think we've learned watching Chris in this role is he wants to do everything he can to help this team, and he is so driven to make the postseason. And right now, once August 1 comes around, unless you're in complete rebuild mode and you're starting to move players out and bring players up, there's not much you can do. You just have to sit back and watch. And that's a tough position for somebody who's as competitive as Chris is. And that's basically what he's got to do now, is to say, okay, I'm going to let this play out. And if the Rangers are going to move on into a different direction for the future, then you make those decisions and start to put that plan into place as soon as the season's over.
So we're going to get back to our normal kind of archives in Arlington this week. We've been on the contest to pick the greatest regular season moment here for the last several weeks. And today I thought we'd talk about Ranger records for wins in a season by both overall and then by a rookie, by a pitcher. And I'll start with, we've talked about Ferguson Jenkins, obviously, a lot on this podcast, but it was August 31st in 1974 where Jenkins became the first 20-game winner in franchise history, and there have only been two since. He beat the Indians, then the Cleveland Indians, 2-0 at Arlington Stadium.
The two cents were Kevin Brown and Rick Helling?
Yes.
That's the two cents.
Yeah.
Brown won
92 for Brown, and then 98 for Helling. 98. It's pretty, and we're not the longest. I saw a chart the other day where, and some of these clubs that would surprise you, where other clubs have not had a 20-game winner, in longer than 1996. It's 98. It's a vanishing breed. But anyway, Jenkins, the way he pitched that year, pretty typical. It was a 2-hit shutout against the Indians, complete game, no walks, 9 Ks. And we've gone over. He was 25-12, 29 complete games, 328 in the third inning, 6 shutouts, 225 strikeouts. He finished 5th in the MVP voting, and then lost the Cy Young voting to Catfish Hunter, who finished 6th in the MVP voting. Had a little better ERA, not as many complete games, innings, and strikeouts.
But
they
every
tied
time you
for
bring
wins.
up something about that 74 season with Fergie, it still amazes me. I mean, this is this stat. Remember, baseball was playing until the first week of October back then, and he is winning his 20th game before August is up. So it's just every aspect of that season just blows me away. And the thing that Fergie talks about so often is I think he went 6-0 against the A's.
He went 5-0 in the regular season against the A's, 3 earned runs in 45 innings in 5 starts against the A's team that was the best team in baseball.
And the eventual world champions.
Right, for the
and
third year in a
absolutely
row.
owned Reggie Jackson, and
Right.
he's very proud of that.
But, I mean, if you had and again, who knows, but certainly should have won the Cy Young Award probably. So
if they if I don't want to ruin the memories of Bert Hawkins, but if you and your hype machine had been around back then, spinning things to the national writers, it might have been a different story.
maybe, but again, the A's won, and then the Rangers finished second in the division. But different era, not as much metrics, and you took wins and ERA very seriously when you did the Cy Young voting.
For those of you who are just listening and not watching, when John would start the spin machine, this was the sign that I gave because it was just very clear that he was spinning. So, but with Fergie, you didn't need to spin.
No, not really. The other one we're going to talk about is another guy that was less spin and more managing, and that was on August 28th of 2012. Yu Darvish won his 13th game, which set at the time club record for wins by a rookie in a season. Beat the Rays 1-0 to set the record. 7 shutout innings, 10 strikeouts. Yu would go on to finish 16-9, 221 strikeouts. Finished great. And I looked this up. It's hard to believe. Yu Darvish turned 39 like 2 weeks ago. And it just seems like that was a year. It was fun. I mean, the Rangers had a great season until the last week. But bringing Darvish into that rotation, essentially to replace C.J. Wilson, which was a big loss. I mean, he was pitcher of the year, 10 and 11 for the Rangers. But Darvish just brought obviously a lot of Japanese media, but was just a different vibe when he went out and pitched.
Well, this was essentially Ohtani before Ohtani was around. I know Yu was not hitting at that point in time, clearly, but it was. We had in spring training that year, you set up a tent in front of the spring training facility for press conferences that were really only geared for you. There was no other reason why that was there. And
we had to like, if the game was still going on and he pitched, I would have to call the scoreboard room and say, please turn the music off because we're doing a press conference. So they'd have to turn the PA off in the middle of a game because this tent was out in the courtyard.
The circus tent is the way I like to refer to it. But it was like nothing that I had ever experienced. Well, I take that back in some regard because the first couple of months of the Alex Rodriguez tenure were certainly
yes. We didn't have the daily media crush that we had with Darvish,
right? Because you had an entire it was bigger than the Rangers beat. The crew of Japanese media that was covering him on a daily basis was bigger than the Rangers beat. So yeah, it was that made it bigger. And listen, the one, it felt like in 2012, obviously Yu was very unfamiliar with how things were done around here, and he was very guarded.
Right. Which now, if you looked at the same player, and even by the time he ended his Rangers tenure, how open he was. He would talk to you in English off to the side. He never, most Japanese players are very leery about answering questions publicly in English because they just don't want the meaning to be misconstrued. But you're right. I mean, and the Japanese did not get a lot of. We had to really work for the access for Japanese. And again, this is a starting pitcher. He's pitching every 5 days. We tried to get him to talk once between starts. We didn't always succeed, and he would talk after a start, and it wasn't a lot of access.
But this is, and that made some challenges. But my point in all of this is that, like, over the 5 years that Darvish was here, to watch how he grew in that regard, and to gain the rapport that I felt like I did with him, like, he liked to make fun of me. He liked to joke. And we know that the language of the clubhouse is when a guy makes fun of you, that's when you know that you've got some kind of rapport.
Right, exactly.
And I saw him in spring training this year, and Brandon Boyd was driving him in the day he pitched against the Rangers in Surprise, and Brandon went out to the players' parking lot in Surprise, picked him up and drove him in. And I just saw Brandon driving in a golf cart with somebody. I didn't realize it was you at first, and I was like squinting, and all of a sudden they come wheeling up, and you is filming me. And of course I've got like some kind of grimace on my face. And I said, I'm so happy to see you. And he posted the video later on. So of course that it never, the great thing about the other great thing was like his sense of humor. We were tweeting. We talked about this with Adrian about the day of about Pudge's Hall of Fame weekend, when Adrian was going for 3,000 hits, and then right after that we rolled into the trade deadline day, and I'm tweeting, there's no activity. 10 minutes to go. Yu Darvish, the Rangers have no announcement, and I wasn't in the clubhouse because I wasn't with the team. I was still stuck in New York.
Right.
And Darvish tweets a picture of him in a Rangers hat saying, "I'm still here." He's been a really enjoyable personality to cover. And he pitched yesterday, and just to see him have the long career that he's had in Major League Baseball, it is one of the fondest experiences that I've had.
And we have Ohtani now. We have the guys with the Dodgers. But the hype when you came over was insane. I mean, I was lucky enough. I'd been in Boston. I had Daisuke Matsuzaka, so I had a little playbook for this. But you still don't realize the pressure the player is on for the whole country. But I agree with you. And he's had his injuries along the way. But he's put together a 14-year, to this point, pretty good Major League career.
Got over 100 wins. And that's, we talk about 20 wins in a season. Now 100 wins in a career is an accomplishment. Every time I think about Yu Darvish, it brings a smile to my face.
And the Fergie Jenkins and Yu Darvish have one other thing in common. They're the only two Ranger pitchers to ever finish second in the Cy Young Award voting. We were fingers crossed this year that Nathan Eovaldi, he stays healthy. He's certainly in the conversation. But that'll be for another day. And the only other team, and I think we've talked about this, that has never won a Cy Young Award is the Colorado Rockies. So
they're never going to win a Cy Young Award.
Hopefully the Rangers will. So that's the Archives in Arlington, and we thank you for joining this week's Friday edition of Sports Day Rangers.
Don't forget to check out more sports content from the Dallas Morning News. The Sports Day Insider, which is my podcast with columnist Kevin Sherrington and a guest from within the Sports Day staff, appears in the same Sports Day Insider feed every week. That now drops, I believe, on first thing Wednesday morning. And the whole idea behind this was we didn't want to give you too much of me at one time. We wanted to spread out the doses of me. So you've got spread out throughout the week. Lots of stuff. We've got more great guests coming up for you before the end of this season.
And if you'd like Evan to wear a hat on one of his two podcasts, just let us know.
What kind of hat do you want me to wear? What?
I don't know. A little beanie or something?
All right.
We'll see. So if you have any questions for us, you can ask us on X, and we'll talk to you all next Friday. Thanks for watching or listening.